Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of childhood abuse, bullying, suicidal ideation, postpartum mental health themes, family estrangement and boundary setting, complex PTSD, and trauma symptoms. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion.
Welcome back, everyone. I have with me today Emily Cleghorn. Emily helps trauma surviving mamas manage their triggers, heal from past trauma, and create peaceful, thriving homes by offering holistic tools, education, and community support while raising awareness and advocating for systemic change in maternal mental health. Welcome, Emily. How are you today?
I am good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I'm excited for this conversation. I think this will be very helpful to a lot of my listeners. But I would love for you to start with your own personal journey that led you into doing this type of work that you're doing. So go ahead and start wherever you'd like.
Absolutely. I grew up, I endured an incredibly traumatic childhood.
Mm.
When I was six-ish, my dad had gotten married to my stepmom. And at that point in my life, I was really close with my dad. I was daddy's little girl. And so I wanted to go live with him, which is what I did. Before that, I was raised by my paternal grandparents, and he lived with us. So we were just a multi-generational family. And so my grandparents thought, whatever, she should be with her father. So they let me go live with my dad. And it didn't take very long for me to realize that was a mistake because I was abused in all of the ways by my stepmom and my stepbrother.
Oh.
And on weekends, I wasn't allowed to stay home. I was rotated between different family members' homes. And it was really not a good situation. And then in November of the following year, after I had moved in, so just after my 7th birthday, I was at my mom's house and she told me to go get my stuff ready to go home, and something inside of my 7-year-old self clicked, and I decided that I wasn't going home. I didn't know where exactly I would go, but I knew that I wasn't going home.
Oh.
Now, my mom lived very rurally, like coastal backwoods, Nova Scotia.
Okay.
There was no place to go, and it was November in the 90s. There was snow. There was a lot of snow. It's not like winter now where we don't get a whole lot of snow until January,
Okay.
but there was a lot of snow and it was cold and I was underweight.
Mm.
So there was nowhere really for me to go. So I went into my sister's room because I would bounce between my brother and my sister's room when I stayed. Somebody would sleep on the floor and somebody would sleep in the bed, and how it was back then. And I packed up my bag, and I was small enough that I could fit in the chair hole of my sister's desk. Now, think back to those big wooden desks that we had in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, so I fit in the chair hole, and I
Okay.
was able to put my backpack or my bag, whatever I had, in front of me so that you couldn't see me. And I sat there. And if I were playing hide and seek, I would have won because my brother, my sister came in, where are you? And I stayed quiet. I was not answering because I was not going home. My mom came in, where are you? No answer. It took a while before they noticed my bag on the floor. They moved it, and there I was. And that night, I went back to live with my grandparents. And life went back to normal. Only I wasn't a normal 7-year-old.
Not after
Because
going through everything you've already gone
I
through.
had learned in those 18 months, I had learned survival skills that not a lot of 6 and 7-year-olds know.
Oh, you're so little at that age.
I know. I have a 6-year-old now. I have a 5 and a 6-year-old now. And they are so little and
Yeah.
innocent. And I couldn't imagine them living through a situation like that. So there I was, 7 years old, life went back to normal, switched schools. I should also note that my stepmom had advocated or fought with my elementary school at the time to hold me back in first grade. So I was still in first grade. All of my friends that I started school with were in second grade, and nobody really understood. So kids make fun of kids because of whatever difference that they can find.
Yeah.
So I was bullied at school, and I learned very young to not express emotions because it wasn't safe. Through my teen years and early 20s and all of that, I dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression because I was told very young, I think I was 9 years old the first time I went up to my grandmother and said, Nan, I don't want to be alive anymore. It hurts too much.
Oh,
And
man.
she looked at me, she was a boomer, so she had the best intentions and all of her skills that she had. She looked at me and said, we don't talk that way.
Oh.
And so I learned that we don't express how we're really feeling. We just push it down, bury it, and carry on. So it wasn't until my daughter was born in 2018 when every repressed emotion came to the surface, and I was forced to confront everything I had spent the previous 28 years running from and avoiding. And I knew that I didn't want her to have the childhood that I had, because the childhood that I had was a childhood from hell. And my nervous system at that point was screaming, run, get the hell out of here because it's not safe. But I knew that if I listened to that instinct, that I would be recreating the parental abandonment that I had experienced.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. So I chose to stay and face the uncomfortable minefield of repressed emotion, trauma garbage that was in my backyard, for lack of a better way to say it. And in those really dark days, after my daughter was born, I said a prayer. I said, God, if you can please just help me through this, I will reach my hand back into the fire because I know I'm not special enough to be the only mama who is walking this path.
So was a lot of that part of postpartum, do you think? Depression? Anxiety?
No, it wasn't postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety or baby blues, or it was yes and.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like I did a lot of research in those days. I was like, what am I dealing with here? Because I was petrified that I was going to hurt my daughter the way I had been hurt. And I couldn't live with myself if that happened.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of research and I looked at symptom list after symptom list. I was like, yes, maybe, but it's not just,
It's more than that. Yeah.
more than that. And the steps that I took have been, at first, it started out very small because I realized very quickly that my nervous system couldn't handle the stimuli of my daughter crying.
Oh.
My window of tolerance was so small that I had to teach my nervous system how to cope. And I had next to no coping strategies.
Yeah, because up until that point, you just suppressed. That was your coping strategy.
Yeah, and it wasn't healthy.
Yeah, and now it's boiling over because you've suppressed much and forced to face it. And so what did you end up doing? Or did you seek therapy? What did you end up doing?
To start, I was living in Western Canada, very rurally, and my community didn't really have therapists and whatnot. I would have had to drive 6 to 8 hours to find a therapist. So I found a therapist online who did Zoom sessions when Zoom was just a baby. And she helped me to discern where the boundaries were, where my mom stopped and where I started, and where I stopped and where my daughter started.
Okay.
And because for me, all of those lines were blurred. And I was convinced that I was stuck in the choices that my mom had made. And that wasn't true, but I couldn't see it. The first thing after that I did was I found community.
Okay.
Which was huge because for so many of us trauma survivors, we tell ourselves or we feel that we're all alone.
Yes.
Nobody can possibly understand what we're going through. Yeah. We're all alone. And that is what your trauma will tell you to keep you isolated. Because when you're isolated, it can run the show.
Yeah.
And so finding community with other moms and women who had similar values to what I had, who could support me in the way that a new first-time mama needs support. And because of where I was living, that happened to be a virtual community.
Yeah.
And back then, I was also a teacher as well. So I would get my daughter all dressed up and I would drive to school to have lunch with my coworkers. And that was my way of getting out of the house.
Okay.
And having somebody to talk to that could respond other than crying.
Yeah.
And from there, it's been a process of learning how to calm my nervous system, because for the first 30 years of my life, my nervous system was stuck in activation.
Yeah.
And that causes issues.
Yeah.
And calm feels foreign.
Oh.
When your nervous system has been stuck in constant low-level activation, calm feels threatening.
Yeah. Because that's what you're used to, right?
Yeah. You're
Mhm.
used to waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're used to looking for the next possible threat.
Yeah.
And so learning how to identify my emotions,
Mm. Mm.
learning how to feel comfortable feeling my emotions
That's scary.
with a newborn.
Yeah. Now, can I ask you at that point in time, were you in contact with any of your family?
Um, yes, I was, but my family has found it very threatening that I have embarked on a healing journey
Mm.
and have gotten vocal about it.
Oh,
It threatens their status quo.
yeah, because yeah, they were part of your trauma.
Yeah.
And I can imagine if you're that person and you find that depending on the type of person you are, but like I imagine that hearing that you were the reason that your child or whatever ended up in dealing with the trauma they were dealing with was because of you, that has to be that they have to go deal with their own shit in order to get through that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
It's definitely an option.
but I
Not everybody
imagine
takes the
like
option.
I was just curious because I imagine while you're going through this healing journey and trying to recognize these feelings and stuff, that they are probably triggers, right?
Yeah, there are certain people that were definitely triggers.
Yeah.
And as I navigated this, there were people in my family who I just chose to no longer have a relationship with
Yeah.
because I had spent so much time chasing those people, looking for the type of parental figure that every little kid wants,
Sure.
and it wasn't going to happen.
Oh,
And so I needed to distance myself because it hurt too much to continue.
yeah.
And yeah, it's been a journey of a lot of nervous system work and learning how to identify my triggers. So once you learn how to identify your emotions and get comfortable with feeling your emotions, then you can start the work of identifying what is causing the emotion. And I have come to learn that when you're triggered, if it is caused by your child having a temper tantrum or a meltdown or whatever you want to call it, or it's caused by something in the environment, it is not actually about that thing.
Ah,
So you lose your temper because your kid's throwing a fit on the grocery store floor because they want the Fruity Pebbles instead of the Cheerios. You're not reacting necessarily to your child on the grocery store floor. You're reacting to the feeling that your child throwing that fit is causing you.
yeah.
And typically, it's linked back to your own childhood, and it's an invitation for you to heal something that needs healing.
That's got to be really telling for a lot of parents to witness or just to go through those types of situations. So, like, I can imagine.
It's eye-opening in
Yeah.
my experience. It's been
Yeah.
very eye-opening.
Yeah. It makes
Um,
sense that you're raising your child, You're watching this child grow up, and of course, there's going to be triggers in that. Of course,
Oh
to your
yeah,
own childhood.
they're little mirrors.
Yeah. Oh. So you found community, and then what did you do next? What was the next thing that helped you?
In all honesty, it was doing my certification to become a health and life coach.
Okay.
Because in that process, you are not just the coach, you are also the client.
Yeah.
And so it was an opportunity for me to work through some of the stuff. And then in 2023, I went to my doctor and I was like, I would like to do whatever testing is necessary to determine if I have PTSD or complex
Mm.
PTSD, whatever. And so we did the testing and it was determined that I have complex PTSD, which no duh.
You're like, I already knew that, but thank you for confirming.
But that diagnosis, I had felt for much of my life that I had a black cloud looming over my head. And it didn't really matter what I did or where I went or whatnot. The black cloud was always just there. And that diagnosis came with a wave of anger
Mm.
because it had taken over 30 years for me to be diagnosed.
Yeah.
But the process of getting that diagnosis and being able to do my research and understand what that does to your
Mm.
brain physically changes its development.
Wow.
It is a physical, lack of a better term, injury. And then I was able to look back on my life and see all that I had done in spite of that.
Mm.
And I was able to give myself a little more credit for what I had achieved.
Yeah.
But with that diagnosis and being able to do that reflection, the black cloud went away.
Mm.
It's
It's
not
so
there
in-
anymore.
it's so interesting because I'm like, I firmly believe, I like the analogy of we're like cars.
Yeah.
If you don't know what's wrong with the car, you almost can't fix it. You have
Yeah.
to figure it out, diagnose it, and then you can take the steps to fix it. And it's so, I bet as angry as you were when you got that it took that long to get that diagnosis, you were probably also like finally, like I can
Yeah.
recognize this and take the steps I need and do what needs
I
to be.
can reclaim my power
Yes, yes.
because the trauma no longer has the power.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm glad that lifted your black cloud.
But as I've gone through my healing journey, I've been able to identify and share my story in a way that helps mamas who are feeling alone and isolated understand that they're not,
Mm.
that there are far more mamas out there who are dealing with similar feelings and challenges, that they're not alone. And that's the whole purpose behind my podcast,
Mm.
is to have the uncomfortable conversations that our society has shied away from because they're hard conversations and they're not pretty. Because having those conversations, I believe very firmly that our emotional wounds are very similar to a physical cut or scrape on your arm. That cut or scrape needs air to heal.
Yeah.
Your emotional wounds need to be talked about on a level that is okay for you. And I say trauma recovery is a lot like peeling an onion.
Yeah.
It makes you cry, and there are many layers.
Yes. It's a great comparison. I love that.
But talking about them on a level that's okay for you is necessary for them to heal.
Yeah.
It can't heal if you push it down and cover it over and never acknowledge it.
And I think like society is getting a little bit better at
Yeah.
dealing with mental health and stuff like that. Like you were talking about your grandma. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about, and if you seek out a therapist or help, you're like the weirdo. I do think that's changing, but I still think there's a lot of, especially for women and related to mothering, there's a lot there that is still not talked about. I did a whole podcast episode a while back with a friend of mine who had very severe postpartum depression and anxiety. And that's another thing that's just, I think it was like talked about during like our parents' generation, but still very hush about that aspect. And I think that we need to talk about it more because then there becomes awareness about those situations too. And then you do find out you're not the only one dealing with this stuff and that your feelings are not crazy and things like that. And but that requires people being vulnerable and talking about it, which is also very tough sometimes too. And then a lot of people have a hard time admitting that they need help too.
Yeah, because there's a stigma around postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. Like for the first probably 6 weeks of my daughter's life, I hated being a mother and I couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
After a lot of time, I'm talking years, I understood that I hated being a mother because of what every maternal figure I had in my life as a child, what they left the term mother, what they defined that term to be for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Your lived experience was very different.
My lived experience of mothers was they leave, they abandon you, they offer conditional love, they're undependable, like you can't depend on them. And like whatever society's definition of mother is, mine was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that for my kids.
Sure.
So we don't even use the term mother.
Oh.
Like
More.
my business is called Mamahood after trauma instead of motherhood after trauma because of what the word mother has meant to me personally. That term, it's not so bad anymore, but that term was very triggering for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a mother.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's so interesting. It's true. I firmly believe that all of our childhood experiences shape who we are and how we react to things and how we handle situations. And even if you have a good childhood, there's still a lot of things that made you the way you are. So,
Yeah, your nervous system still had to adapt to survive because it wasn't all roses and sunshine.
yeah. So when did you decide you wanted to start doing the coaching and trigger recovery and all of that stuff for people?
I've been on my coaching journey now for about, oh goodness, 4 years, 4 or 5 years. And I've developed I call it the cycle breaker's journey. So the first thing that I did really in my business was I wrote a book. It's called Rising from the Ashes, Reclaiming Your Life After a Traumatic Childhood. And in there, I talk a lot about the skills or the concepts that I had to learn early on in my trauma recovery journey. Things like self-worth,
Mm.
boundaries. I know it's a hot topic, forgiveness, and I think it's really misunderstood.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a whole podcast episode before with a lady who is basically a forgiveness coach. And so we talked a lot about that because I think the stigma behind forgiveness is that you're
You're letting them off
condoning
the
the
hook.
behavior, you're letting them off the hook, you're saying
Yeah.
it's okay that they treated me that way, things like that. But it's really not that. It's
No, it's not.
freeing yourself, essentially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And creating a vision because as trauma survivors, we lose our ability to dream
Yeah.
and really see life beyond our misery. I know for me, there was a time in my life where I believed that life was always going to just be this miserable existence. And I couldn't dream. I couldn't. It was not in my, I didn't have that skill.
Because you're just trying to get through each day.
Yeah, you're just living in survival mode.
Yeah. Ugh.
And when you're in survival mode, like a cave person, you're not looking to go beyond the cave.
I hate survival mode so much. Obviously, it's a bad place to be, but I feel like for myself, I have never been able to recognize that I'm actively in survival mode until I'm out of it. And then I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't dealing with anything. I was totally in survival mode for however long that was. But I think for me, it's been a hard one to recognize in myself and when I'm in the moment. And yeah, it's always just
Yeah.
after the fact. I'm like, oh, I wasn't dealing with anything, but I kept telling myself in that moment, oh, I'm dealing with it. I'm figuring it out. But you're not. It's just a day to day, one foot in front of the other. So
Drudging through.
yeah.
And then, so that's rising from the ashes is the first part of the journey. You rise, you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and decide there is a decision that you're going to do the work to heal. Even if you don't know what it is, you're going to do the work.
Yeah. Oof.
And then the next step is break free. And that's where the trigger recovery work, identifying your triggers, and going through that process takes place. And then once you've begun to move through that, you can move beyond. Once you've got that awareness and you've developed a trigger toolkit, if you're like me and you're walking into this with no coping strategies, having a trigger toolkit is a lifesaver.
What do you usually tell your clients to put in their trigger toolkit?
For people who are just starting out, what we default to is what we know. So practicing your breathing techniques or your journaling or having something to fidget with. I mean, these things, they look like a scrunchie,
Yeah.
but they've got a snap and they're like, you can fidget with it
Love that.
and it looks like a scrunchie. So nobody's going to know that it's actually a fidget. Using those things before you're triggered is how you're going to learn how to default to them when a trigger comes up. Because when your trigger happens and survival mode kicks in, you're going to default to the avoidance or the people pleasing or the fawning or the whatever it is that you do without those coping skills. And so using your trigger toolkit when you're not triggered helps you to use it when you are.
That's great advice. Yeah.
And as you progress, I've created physical, like things you can hold in your hand to remind you how to do the thing.
Mm.
Because when you're triggered, you can't think rationally.
Yeah.
And if you're learning new skills, so I've created physical tools that you can hold and look at and use as a prompt, like a life jacket. And then as you move along your journey, you don't need those supports anymore.
Yeah.
Think about a kid in school when they're learning how to do something new. Typically, your teacher will do it first, model, then you'll do it together, and then you do it by yourself. So, why would it be different as an adult learning new skills?
Yeah.
So, I model in a training type format. Then we walk through it together. Then you have your tools. You
Mhm.
can do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the teacher in me. But just because you're no longer in school doesn't mean you can't use the same type of strategy to
Yeah.
learn a new thing. And then once you've equipped yourself with your trigger toolkit and you're able to use those tools to break free, then you can start to activate the dreaming
Mm.
and move beyond the trigger.
Mm.
So the first two phases of the journey are very you-centric because you can't be the safe place for your kid. You can't help them co-regulate if you're not regulated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has to be mama focused. And as you make the changes, your kids will notice they're little sponges.
Yeah.
But the third phase, we move into moving from reactive parenting to responsive parenting. And you're
Mm.
no longer parenting from your stress response. You're able to co-regulate with your child because you've got the skills to regulate yourself.
Yeah. Which
Because have you ever noticed if your kid is having a meltdown or a temper tantrum or something, and you explode, how much more explosive the
Yeah.
situation gets? But when you approach that same meltdown and your nervous system is calm,
Mm.
like we're not faking it calm, like it's actually calm, then your child is able to calm down so fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
I think it's so hard for moms though too, right? Because
It
it's
is.
considered selfish to try to work on yourself and look at yourself, and instead of the kid and the whole situation with the kid and everything that's going on there, God forbid you focus on yourself and regulate yourself and then regulate the kid. Our society has taught us that then you're a selfish mom if that's the case.
But it's ass backwards.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Because I think most women are better moms when they've worked through their stuff, when they can
Yeah.
regulate, when they can, for
Yeah.
sure, in many different aspects, not just the tantrums and the triggers. Like you have to take care of yourself. And so I don't have kids, but I also understand I have a lot of friends with kids. I have a sister with kids. Like I understand that it's also you feel guilty for doing those things and stuff too. And it's not so easy. And I've seen lots of my friends lose themselves in motherhood. And
It's so easy to do.
yeah, so easy to do. I see it happen so often. But then I have friends that manage to hold on to themselves through it too. And so it's just interesting, not saying that's anyone's fault or anybody's doing anything wrong or bad. Like it's just a thing that happens. And then we have to
It's our
figure it out.
conditioning too,
Yeah.
because what we saw as children was mom was always there. She took care of everything. If we needed something, go to mom.
Yeah.
And you see these funny reels every so often where the kid will walk straight past their dad to go find their mom. And their dad's like, I help you.
Yeah.
But that's what we've been conditioned to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And then past generations too, with
Yeah.
our society changing into women being more independent and having careers and having goals and having other things outside of motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
That's changing, but still has a little ways to go for that. And being able to have an identity outside of it being socially acceptable to have an identity outside of motherhood and being the housekeeper and all the things. Hopefully that will change as time goes on even more. But that's our parents and their parents. Like
Well,
they
yeah.
were moms. They had to stay home. They had to take care of the house. They had to take care of the kids. And then so it was,
The cycles that we are breaking, we did not start.
yeah, so interesting.
And that's not just talking about how our families operate. That's also centered on the trauma cycles that we're breaking.
Yeah.
Trauma cycles and repressed emotions change your DNA.
Mm.
And I'm not going to get too deep into that, but because it's very deep.
Yeah.
But it changes your DNA. And so there was an expression that one of my instructors said during my certification. It's that your biography becomes your biology.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Your biology becomes your biography, sorry, becomes your biology, meaning that your family history. So think about the lives of your grandparents, the lives of your great grandparents, and the trauma that they endured and didn't have the skills to cope with and heal. It got passed down
Yep.
until you said, no, enough's enough. It stops here. It changed. It's not just surface level, it's
Yeah.
much deeper than that.
Yeah. Peel the onion deeper.
Peel the onion.
Oh, man. So, what does it look like to work with you, Emily?
So right now, have my Beyond the Trigger program. This program is is meant for those mamas who are ready to dream and work towards responsive parenting versus reactive parenting. And this has a few different pathways. There's a DIY path where it's more like an online course. You get support in a app chat. And then there's a group coaching path because I believe that community is huge. It's a make or break kind of a thing on a healing journey because when you go it alone, you can do it alone for a little while, maybe. But there are bad days are going to come.
Yeah.
And you're going to be tempted to not continue on because at the beginning of your journey, it's harder to change than not change.
Yeah.
And so having that community of other mamas who are walking a similar path is huge for accountability, for support, for having someone to vent to. And that's not what we're all about, but letting your feelings out and getting them out of your body is huge.
Yeah.
And then there's also one-to-one if you prefer to work one-to-one. So that's basically what I've got right now. I've also got digital products and my books and stuff like that. But
Have you done multiple books then, besides just the one?
yeah, I am currently, as we're recording this, working on releasing my second book called Breaking Free,
Oh,
Parenting in the Midst of Trauma Recovery. And that's where I talk more about acknowledging how your trauma impacts your parenting journey, which is huge.
yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. So I love that you're diving into this. So you've got the two books, you've got your courses and one-on-one coaching and things like that. And then you mentioned a podcast as well.
Yeah, so I'm the host of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. We are working our way up to our 200th episode in November, so I'm so excited.
Congrats.
Yeah, not a lot of podcasters make it to 200 episodes. It's definitely something worth celebrating.
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome. And we will link a lot of that in the show notes for people to find you. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to discuss?
No, if you're a mama listening to this and you're feeling alone on your journey, know that you're not.
Yeah.
There are so many mamas out there who are walking a similar path, and if you need support, reach out to someone. My DMs are always open, of course, and it's my heart to support you so you don't have to go it alone.
Yeah. Ugh. I love the work you're doing in this world, Emily. Thank you so much. I think it's, like I said, something that not a lot of people are acknowledging. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love the work that I do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on here and being vulnerable and sharing your story because I never take that lightly. I know that's not an easy thing to do. And good job doing all the work that you've done to this point because it's not easy work. It's never easy work.
No, it's not easy work, but you know what? It's worth it.
It's worth it on the other side for sure. I'm so tired of 2020 being like hindsight being 2020, right? Like I've said it a few times on this podcast. I'm like, oh, I wish I had a crystal ball sometimes because when you get on the other side of these things, then you can really look back and do the reflecting and stuff like that. But it's so hard in the midst of it to be doing some of that work. But yes, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and doing your work. And yeah, do you have any parting words for my listeners?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, if you would like support, you can find me on my website or on Instagram,
Which will be,
Emily.mamahood after trauma.
yep. And those, I will put those in the show notes too. So if anybody wants to easy access to it, that's a good place to go. Amazing. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.